Do you remember the last one, Dan?
I do, surely.
What year was that one?
Well, made in the 40s. 40s, was it?
48.
48. Mind. That's not on the story. Not all. We were all standing, we were red coats. Coming down the lane and we got the heads beat up with the little one sword. We run big burgers on us. Got the pea and the first man over the pier was Ned Cook coming up a wee boat. We Ned bandage on him. I think it was Charlie Murphy King. King over the left. We were supposed to be very stern, you know, the big boat was standing with our pikes. Charlie come over. Left his belly on the pier and he says, "Tony, how's this town for a wee bit?" And busted the racks and finished the that was the crack. It was a great day. Charlie and Donald, Ronnie. Oh, mercy God. Great. Somebody's singing them.
On behalf of the Buncrana 1798 Commemoration Committee, I want to welcome you to the unveiling of this memorial to Wolfe and his comrades. As most of you will know from the press and radio, our committee had planned a more extensive programme to commemorate this year earlier, but in the aftermath of the Oma bombing and its tragic consequences locally, we considered it inappropriate to proceed with our plans at that time. It didn't prove possible to restart the project later on, so we settled for erecting a permanent, what would be a permanent memorial here near the spot where, according to the tradition, Wolfe was brought ashore. Those of you who walk around here regularly will know that even then we ran into difficulties. The first stone we selected didn't prove suitable, but like Robert Bruce and his spider, we persisted in our efforts, and I think that you'll agree that our efforts have been successful. The second stone was proved to be much better, and it will prove a very suitable reminder to local people of our association with the historic events of 200 years ago. It will also, I'm sure you will agree, provide the locality with a very fine civic monument. Most local people will be well aware of Wolfe association with the Buncrana area. They may not be as aware that throughout Donegal in that fateful year of 1798, the United Irishmen were active, particularly in East Donegal. And also the leadership of the United Irishmen had many family connections with Donegal, and particularly with the Lagan. For that reason, it is appropriate that we have here to unveil this memorial today Danny Harkin, the chairman of Donegal County Council. Danny comes from an area where the United Irishmen would have been active. In the lower of the period, Danny comes from Convoy, and in the lower of the period, Convoy, Ballandrit, Rafo.
Thank you, Chairman of the Commemoration Committee, Reverend Fallers, Chairperson of Buncrana Urban District Council, Councillor Jim Ferry, Deputy Celia Keaveney, and members of Buncrana Urban District Council, ladies and gentlemen. I would like, first of all, to thank the Chairperson and the Commemoration Committee for inviting me here today in my role as Chairperson of Donegal County Council to unveil the commemoration stone in honour of Wolfe Tone. And I'd like to compliment the committee for the great work they have done in coming to this day. They've done a lot of work, and a lot of commitment went into it to get it to the stage where it is. And it's very appropriate that we come here 200 years and 1 month, more or less to the day, since Wolfe Tone died. And it's great to see such a large turnout here this evening in Buncrana. And suppose whenever we look at the history of Wolfe Tone, we've got to look at the whole history of Ireland, right from that time right up to the present time, and some of the terrible atrocities and tragedies that happened right down the years. And indeed here in Buncrana, I don't have to remember or to remind you people here in your own town not so many months ago, the terrible atrocity and the terrible tragedy that resulted from it, and the heartbreak and the tragedy for families. And here in Ireland, I suppose it's been a part of our history right down the years of all these terrible things that has happened. And I would just like here today, I'm sure there are people much better qualified and more intellectual knowledge of Wolfe Tone than maybe that I have. But he was a person that I was always fascinated with, and I was really lucky. Probably the school that I attended, we were very fortunate that we had an outstanding and a very genuine Irish history teacher who learnt us all about our Irish martyrs and Irish leaders right down through the generations. Make the comparison between his family and other families where there was a real republicanism and nationalist background, and Wolfe Tone didn't come from that type of background. Wolfe Tone is regarded as the father of Irish republicanism. A Protestant barrister from Dublin. He campaigned for civil rights of his Irish Catholic countrymen who were excluded from the political life of the nation. He was influenced by the American Revolution and Jefferson's ideas of democratic principles. And in 1791, after his pamphlet, An Argument on Behalf of the Catholics of Ireland, was published, he was invited to Belfast, where he played the primary role in the formation of the Society of the United Irishmen. The French Revolution in 1793 sent shockwaves through the established order in Britain. The corresponding social upheaval resulted in the suppression of the United Irishmen and was forced underground to be the first Irish Republican movement. In May 1795, Tone, along with Thomas Russell, Henry Joy McCracken and others, climbed Cave Hill overlooking Belfast and swore a solemn undertaking. There might be no harm to recall here just what that undertaking was. Never to desist in our efforts until we have subverted the authority of England over our country and asserted her independence. Tone turned to France for help, and it was there that he penned what is perhaps the most quoted passage in Irish history: to subvert the tyranny government and break the connection with England, the never-failing source of all our political evils, to unite the whole people of Ireland, to abolish the memory of all past dissensions, and to substitute the common name of Irish men in the place of denominations of Protestant, Catholic and Dissenter. As the chairperson has mentioned, my part of the County East Donegal, or the United Irishmen, were very prominent. The United Irishmen enjoyed widespread support in all Donegal. It is estimated at one time that they numbered almost 20,000 men. They were particularly strong in the Lagan and in the oral tradition which has been passed down through generations. There is frequent mention of Newton Cunningham, Ballandrit and Rafoe. A contemporary ballad mentions a man from my own village of Convoy. And as we commemorate Wolfe Tone today through the unveiling of the stone, we may recall also that the first stone bridge in Ireland was built in Ballandrit near Lifford, home of the bold United Irishmen in the year 98. And a person by the name of Sandy was their captain, and he asked the people in Ballandrit would they volunteer. The leaders of United Irishmen in Dublin and the north also had strong Donegal connections. Oliver Bond, the head of the Dublin Directorate, and whose home almost the entire Leinster leadership were arrested in the spring of 1798 of Wolfe Tone. And it was during those trials that his famous trial on November the 10th, 1798, and today it might be worth remembering just a couple of extracts from that. One was that he said, "From my earliest youth I have regarded the connection between Great Britain and Ireland as the course of the Irish nation, and felt convinced while it lasted the country could never be free nor happy. My mind has been confirmed in this opinion by the experience of every succeeding year, and the conclusions which I have drawn from every fact before my eyes. In consequence, I was determined to employ all powers which my individual efforts could move in order to separate the two countries. Recognising that Ireland was not able of herself to throw off the yoke, I therefore sought the aid of wherever I could be found. In honourable poverty, I rejected offers which, to a man in my circumstances, might be remained faithful to what I thought the cause of my country, and sought in the French Republic an ally to rescue 3 million of my countrymen." And very close to the end of his speech, and again from an extract which is very worth remembering, he said, "I believe there is nothing in what remains for me to say which can give any offence. I mean to express my feelings and gratitude towards the Catholic body, in whose cause I was engaged. I have laboured to create a people in Ireland by raising 3 millions of my countrymen to the rank of citizens." And I think that statement has been very important. "I have laboured to abolish the informal spirit of religious persecution by uniting Catholics and dissenters. To the former, I owe more than ever can be repaid. The services I was so fortunate as to render them, they rewarded magnificently. But they did more. When the public cry was raised against me, when the friends of my youth swarmed off and left me alone, the Catholics did not desert me. They had the virtue even to sacrifice their own interests to rigid principle of honour. They refused, though strongly urged, to disgrace a man who, whatever his conduct towards the government might have been, had faithfully and conscientiously discharged his duty towards them. And in doing so, though it was in my own case, I will say, they showed an instance of public virtue, of which I know not whether there exists another example." As we all know, he was, in November 78, he was captured here right on the banks of Lough Swilly, very close to the spot where we are standing today. And he was tried in Dublin for treason and was sentenced to death. He made one request, and that was that, found guilty, that he would stand before the firing squad. A request which was denied by the British authorities. But he outwitted the hangman by attempting to take his own life. And he cut his throat in Newgate jail. And the British were so determined that they would still hang him, that they gave him all the medical attention that could be got. And it was while he was lingering for a week after his terrible injuries, and whenever he had medical attendants with him, that one medical attendant remarked to one of the prison officers, he was heard to oversay that any movement may prove fatal. Whereupon he turned his head to the doctor and thanked him for his medical advice. The action did prove fatal, and he died on November the 19th, 1798, 200 years and 1 month yesterday. Just in conclusion, I would like to say that the idealism and the generosity of spirit which led him to abandon the prospect of a lucrative career at the bar in order to serve the cause of his downtrodden countrymen, the steadfastness of purpose which enabled him to persuade the British Directive to send not one but 3 naval expeditions to Ireland, his courage during the naval battle when for 4 hours under constant enemy fire he commanded a battery of guns, and his dignity during all his trial bear testimony to this fact. These sterling personal qualities, idealism, courage and commitment, were shared by a remarkable number of Wolfe Tone's comrades. And while we gather here to salute their memory, it is fitting also to recall and to reflect in the name of the enterprise in which they were engaged. The United Irishmen were inspired by the most advanced and progressive ideas of their time. They sought to bring together Catholic, Protestant and Dissenter, to replace sectarian privilege and past dissension with justice and equality, to create a society that would attract and sustain Irish people and all their diversity. Their vision is as fresh and as important today as it was 200 years ago. In this year of 1998, which has seen its own share of history in the making, we can pay no better tribute to the memory of Wolfe Tone and his comrades than to reclaim and rededicate ourselves to that vision. So I'm very good to go there.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Commemoration Committee, I wish to thank Danny for performing in Unveiling and for the speech that he's after making. It's obvious that Danny's a man steeped in the history of that period. It's nice to see a public representative with a good grasp of their country's history. Thanks very much, Danny, for performing. The Commemoration Committee wish to thank Buncrana Urban Council, who provided a substantial amount of the funding for this project. Wish to thank the Liam Kelly, the Assistant County Manager, the staff at the Council Office, Paul Doyle, Bernadette Cohn, and John in the County Council Office. I don't think anybody who knows their preparations will take it remiss if I give a special mention to the town engineer, Pat Gillespie, without whose help this project would not have been possible. And also very special mention to Donna Lynch and his team of community employment workers who are due both our thanks and our compliments for the work that they have done. On a personal note, I would need to thank them maybe for the prayers that they offered up for me during the downpour last Thursday morning. But also, our compliments and thanks are also due to Devlin Memorials, who dressed up this stone, which is a local stone out of the local quarry, and cut the inscription to Messrs. Cassidy's, who supplied the stone, donated the stone free of charge, and delivered it down to the site. Our thanks are also due, I think we should mention, Charlie McLaughlin, or Charlie the Tone as he's known as, who's an employee of Cassidy's, and who worked at the quarry face and who kept his eye out for a suitable stone. We also wish to thank a number of people who have made a substantial financial contribution. We debated whether we should mention their names publicly or not, and we decided not to. It might attract more attention. They might attract more attention than they would want. Their generosity might attract more attention than they would wish for it, but our thanks are due to them. Without their help, I don't think we would have been able to, would have had the heart to go on with the project. And Rena Donaghy and our helpers who are making the tea, or at least they should be anyway. We also wish to thank, although on our earlier plans we had hoped to have, as I mentioned, a more extensive commemoration, which would have involved the Army, the FCA. There was also a possibility at the time, and not a possibility, it would have been a certainty if it had been done on the right day, of a visit by a naval vessel. And the committee, although it was nobody's fault that that part of it didn't come to fruition, we would wish to mention Lieutenant Colonel Declan O'Carroll, the OC at Funnery Camp, Commandant Tony Kelly, the OC of the 24th Battalion FCA, the staff at the Naval Service Headquarters, and a Donegal man who is a high-ranking officer in the Department of Defence, Mr. Q. Crawford, who was more than helpful. The ceremonies will conclude here when the chairman of Buncrana Urban Council, Mr. Jim Ferry, lays a wreath on behalf of all who wish to honour the memory of Wolfe Tone and his comrades. And then the local piper from Burnfoot, whose name escapes me, will play the national anthem on the Allen pipes. But before that, the committee wish to, on this occasion, to remember the efforts of a previous committee 50 years ago, who staged a magnificent pageant on that, what was the 150th anniversary. Considering that there was very little motor cars, a very poor telephone service, no money from Leader or any other of the sources of funding that are now available, it was a superb achievement. We have been unable to ascertain for certain whether or not any of the members who were on that committee have survived. Some of the people who took part in it are here, undoubtedly here. I know I saw one man, Danny Doherty Tinney. Danny wasn't in the committee, but he took part, and by all accounts was a most ferocious looking redcoat. We think that possibly Arthur Bryant might have been a member of that committee. We're not sure. If he was, he would have been one of the more younger members. Most of the committee were people who are probably would have been middle-aged at the time, but they would have been people who would have lived through the period of the War of Independence. It's almost a certainty that some of them would have been taking an active part in it. They were imbued with a strong patriotic spirit, which was a characteristic of their generation. And our committee would wish that in today's proceedings, the last word would be theirs. In a programme which they published at the time, there was a short introduction, and I will conclude my part in this proceedings by reading the final paragraph in that introduction. And so, out of the sacrifices and noble deeds of Wolfe Tone and the other giant figures of the past, Let us gain inspiration, courage and confidence for the future. We have a fine country. Many have died for it. Our work is to live for it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Last night. Aye, had a good night, seemingly. Had a good night. Had a good night. Alright. Had a good night. Suffering a wee bit this morning. Way to go, Paul.